At the apprentice selection ceremony, I can actually see my disciples' attribute panels. My first disciple is a plain-looking cultivation genius. My second is a decisive, battle-hardened transmigrator. My third is a cold, heartless celestial enchantress. But the sect I belong to is the most obscure existence
Simply
in the
because
cultivation
when I first
world. Crossed over, the system required the disciples I recruit to have immortal potential. But such people are rarer than phoenix feathers. Even if they exist, they are treasures coveted by great sects only at the foundation establishment stage. I could only sneak my way across the Zhuan Wu kingdom until I finally tricked my first disciple. When I brought her back to the sect, the ruined temple before her made her freeze in place. Master, is this really the mountain gate of the world's #1 immortal sect? I looked at the immortal seed I had worked so hard to swindle, putting on the air of a profound Grandmaster. A mountain it is famous if an immortal dwells there. Hearing this, the young girl showed a look of sudden realization. I understand, Master. Is there actually a hidden dimension inside? Li Yingling said excitedly, pushing open the drafty gate with full anticipation. What met her eyes was a statue broken in half, and a crude stove made of piled stones. This scene immediately made her feel like this was a place where beggars lived. Seeing her shocked expression, I remained indifferent, not feeling embarrassed at all. Wait, Master is taking the wood from the side of the statue. I'll pull the planks off to make you a bed. This temple is quite big. You can sleep wherever you like. Li Yingling felt the world go dark, but there was no turning back now. If she went home now, her father would marry her off to the idiot son of Minister Wang. Ruined temple or not. It was better than marrying a fool. Thinking of this, Yingling knelt on both knees and gave me a heavy kowtow. As the sound echoed, the system that had been silent for 3 years finally reappeared. Beginner mission complete. Reward: flawless golden Detected core. Li Yingling's root as a single attribute water spirit root. Distributing teaching material. Supreme Tan water scripture. As the notification of mission completion of worldly sounded, spiritual energy rushed straight into my dantian. My cultivation level began to soar. At this time, Li Yingling asked, as the #1 sect in the Zhuan Wu kingdom, Master must have recruited many disciples, right? Where are the other However, seniors? My answer almost made her collapse. Currently, it's just you. Your master follows the elite route. I only take in destined immortal seeds. I never accept mediocre trash. It's over. I should have believed my mother. Men really are liars. If Li Yingling hadn't seen that I actually made an enemy of the minister's family for her sake, this would look like a total Master, scam. Please don't lie to me. Hearing this, I took the scripture the system just gave me and tossed it to Li Yingling. Just practice this one. Once you do, you'll know if your master lied to you. Absolute certainty. Li Yingling happily looked at the cover of the book, but the title had long since faded. Even the paper was tattered and worn. This looks so low quality. I won't suffer a cultivation backlash, will I? The top-tier techniques in storybooks. Which one doesn't come with its own grand aura? If this ragged book was thrown on the street, people would probably use it as toilet paper. Li Yingling looked at the battered book in her hand and asked weakly, Master, can we switch to another one? Request was naturally shot down by me. At night, Li Yingling lay on the cold wooden planks, unable to help but speak up. Master, the temple door is drafty. Hearing this, I let out a yawn. I told you. Once you master that Supreme Tan water scripture, around the 3rd or 4th level of Qi refining, you won't feel the cold anymore. Li Yingling silently at the divine secret manual lying next to her. Whatever, I chose this myself. Even with tears in my eyes, I have to keep practicing. Thinking this, she gritted her teeth and sat up, picked up the scripture and began to flip through it. She saw the first line. I am the water spirit true lord. This technique is the true immortal realm. Water spirit true lord's exclusive true immortal scripture. Li Yingling felt slightly better looking at the second line. I am the raging tide true lord. What water spirit true lord wrote is trash. I have modified it. The effect is much more powerful. Free to practice. Oh, there's even a kind expert who modified it. Li Yingling nodded with satisfaction and looked at the third line. I am the ocean flipping true lord. The two above are both useless. What kind of junk did they write? It's misleading the youth. I have modified it again. Li Yingling's head was full of question marks. The first page was entirely I am title followed by insulting the previous guy. According to the first page, this water scripture had been modified by at least 17 to the next page, and felt like she was going to faint. I am the North Sea Emperor. Stop changing it. You're all bad at this, but almost love to write backlash practicing this. This version has been modified by me. It's the final version. Practice with confidence. One last thing. Don't anyone else touch it. Li Yingling looked at the next section. Fortunately, no one else dared to change it. But layer upon layer of thick ink had crossed out everything previously for the entire night. The only line not crossed out was water. The spirit of heaven and earth is originally good, just a useless piece of fluff. Li Yingling looked up at me lying on the plains and spoke weakly. Master, if I really practice this, I won't go insane, will I? Hearing this, I walked over to her and Don't worry, I guarantee your safety. Once you practice, you'll see how powerful this scripture is. Li Yingling steeled herself and finished reading the scripture, which had been modified until it had zero relation to the original. Then she began to cultivate according to the technique. However, the feeling this night was instantly different. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth condensed rapidly, swarming toward Li Yingling. She felt a natural sensation spread through her entire body. Dumbfounded silence as Li Yingling rapidly broke through to the first level of qi refining. Then after her aura solidified quickly, she suddenly broke through to the second level of qi refining. As expected of someone with the genius tag. I'm so jealous. Li Yingling has reached the second level of qi refining. Cultivation feedback returned. My eyes lit up at the notification. Immediately after, a surge of pure, subtle spiritual energy entered my body. Addicted to cultivating, practicing straight from night until day, until sunlight pierced through the broken door. Woke me up with a look of pure adoration. Master, I'm at the 5th level of qi refining. That water scripture is truly a top-tier immortal technique. Turning over to go back to sleep, but still gave a perfunctory compliment. Well done. Seeing that I intended to sleep, Li Yingling hurriedly spoke. Master, I haven't reached foundation establishment yet. I can't go without food. I've been hungry for a whole day. There's no food in this wilderness. I felt a bit helpless. Didn't you say this is the wilderness? Go out and catch some wild chickens yourself. You're already at the 5th level of qi refining. You can't possibly lose to a wild chicken, froze for a moment. Fine. Maybe this is just what cultivation is like. After comforting herself, she grabbed a nearby wooden stick and walked out the door. My faint voice drifted from behind her. Remember to save 2 chicken legs for your master. Having just stepped into the 5th level of qi refining, Li Yingling almost stumbled. By the time she walked back to the ruined temple from the deep mountains, it was already high noon. Her pink celestial dress was covered in mud. There were even several dirt streaks on her face. The wooden stick in her hand had been replaced by a wild prey. I looked at the grimy Li Yingling, feeling somewhat puzzled. I sent you out to hunt some game. Why do you look like the game hunted you? Li Yingling almost exploded with rage at those words. She wanted to talk back loudly, but remembering how incredibly powerful that water scripture might just be tempering her, she could only retort weakly. They aren't that easy to catch. Seeing Li Yingling's pouting, aggrieved expression, I spoke with confidence. No need for that face. Watch your master show you a trick. Next time you go hunting, you'll have some motivation. What's the benefit of traveling the Zhuan Wu Kingdom? Naturally, it's having no shortage of spices and seasonings. Soon, the rabbit was turned into 3 dishes and served on the table. Regarding rabbit meat, Li Yingling's instinct was to refuse from the moment she tasted it. Quickly collapsed. The spicy and fresh flavor was addictive. From that day on, her enthusiasm for hunting increased significantly. Half a month passed quickly. Li Yingling leaned by the fire eating a roasted chicken leg, looking blissful. But she still spoke up tentatively. Master, I've been stuck at the 9th level of qi refining for so long. I see in storybooks that when people hit a bottleneck, don't they use miraculous elixirs or spirit reishi to help with the breakthrough? Master, as the #1 cultivator in the Zhuan Wu Kingdom, you must have plenty of good pills and such, right? I looked up at Li Yingling. She was currently wearing a very expectant look. Hilarious. Where would I get pills? If I hadn't recruited you as a disciple, I'd still be stuck in the foundation establishment stage myself. But it wasn't truly impossible. I glanced at the night sky. This Zhuanwu Kingdom is located in a remote region, not like the central state where golden cores are everywhere. In this backwater place, a golden core cultivator can actually be called now a flawless golden core after all. Things I didn't dare do before might be possible now. Thinking of this, I made up my mind. Eat fast. After eating, I'll take you to our sect's herb garden to get some reishi. Li Yingling's eyes lit up. So the sect really isn't just a ruined temple. There are even spirit fields. A dark and windy night. Master and disciple headed southeast from the ruined temple. Li Yingling finally saw the spirit field I mentioned. This spirit reishi really was different. Under the moonlight, it shimmered with light every now and then. But when she saw clearly what her master was doing, she wasn't so excited anymore. She saw me cautiously using my own spiritual power to quietly melt a large hole in the barrier. After checking the surroundings, I handed a cloth bag to Li Yingling. I'll keep watch for you. You go in and grab them. Take whatever looks good. It's our own field. Li Yingling felt dizzy upon hearing this. Master, are you trying to set me up? Looking at the cloth bag forced into her hand, Li Yingling wasn't actually stupid. She knew perfectly well these were herbs from another sect, but the arrow was already on the string. Li Yingling gritted her teeth and cautiously crawled through the large hole. Cultivation must be like this. Entering the spirit field, the nervous Li Yingling didn't care. She grabbed the nearest reishi and pulled it up by the roots until the entire sack was stuffed full. Only then did she prepare to run back. Perhaps she was still wanting more. The herb garden disciple, who was originally dozing, was startled awake. Opening blurry eyes, he discovered a large patch of herbs was missing, especially several herbs that the sect leader urgently needed, which had been uprooted. Which brainless thief would even steal herbs for virility? The guard disciple roared loudly. Thief, someone come quick, there's a thief. Li Yingling's heart skipped a beat instantly. I reacted quickly too, grabbing Li Yingling's hand and quickly slipped away. Faintly, we could only hear someone wailing. Which godforsaken person stole my hard-earned collection of Furong celestial grass? My dear, I have failed you. When the two leaped out again, they were already back at the ruined temple. I took the sack from the shaken Li Yingling, but after identifying two of the reishi, I began to frown. Why did this girl only bring back stuff for young nourishment? Meanwhile, Li Yingling was still trembling. Master, do you do this often? I replied indifferently while picking through the reishi. Don't think too much. That sect had a little grudge with me. Pulling a few of his weeds today settles the score. Hearing this, Yingling became curious. What kind of grudge? I sighed. That sect leader had a cultivation partner. Though she was decent looking, her character was mediocre. Later, she took a liking to me. She tried to seduce me with my peerless aura multiple times, but failed. Then I was chased by that old dog for 3 days and nights. While speaking, I picked out a few herbs and tossed them into a nearby pot. A pot of water soon condensed into a single droplet the size of a pill. Wrapped this droplet with spiritual energy. Open wide, good disciple. Li Yingling was dumbstruck. Aren't everyone else's pills solid? Why is mine liquid? And this green liquid looks like poison no matter how you look at it. Master, are you sure this is edible? If it weren't for the fact that eating the grass directly is ineffective, I wouldn't even bother refining it for you. Hurry up and open your mouth. Go cultivate after eating. Hearing this, Li Yingling helplessly opened her mouth and swallowed the green liquid pill. As the liquid exploded in her mouth, the incredibly bitter taste made her face contort, but the effect was indeed good. The spiritual energy in her body began to surge, cross-legged, and began to cultivate. Seeing Li Yingling's aura gradually steady was a success. Half an hour later, the system's notification finally rang out. Li Yingling has broken through to the Foundation Establishment stage. Reward, Divine Ability 3000 Weak Water Swords. Issuing formal mission. Recruit to qualified disciples. The main mission was within expectations. But where is a disciple that easy to find? I couldn't help but let out a long sigh. And that sigh happened to be heard by Li Yingling, who had finished her session. Could it be that her cultivation had gone wrong? Or was the Foundation establishment method incorrect several times, but found no problems at all? It's over. This is the most serious problem. Master, am I doomed? Snapping back to reality, I gave Li Yingling a weird look. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? While speaking, I tossed the Divine Ability Manual to her. This is a cultivator's ultimate trump card. Practice well. Catching the flying manual. Yingling silently shrank back onto her wooden plank bed. Where on earth can I find another immortal seed disciple? Meanwhile, not far from the ruined temple, a figure slowly emerged. The blood feud of the past life. In this life, I will have my revenge in blood. Ni Xing Tian's gaze was dark. In his previous life, his talent was mediocre. A supreme treasure to change his fate, only to be tricked by a loathsome demonic even enchantress the until he had nothing was drained dry by her. The most hateful thing was that enchantress. He didn't even get to hold her hand once. The destination of his current journey was a mountain god temple in the woods of Shili Slope. Inside that mountain god temple was a stone containing 1,000-year-old ancient jade and melted it. He could undergo a complete transformation. In a place with no sign of human life for miles. The reason a mountain god temple was built there was because a great expert left this fortuitous encounter for a destined person of later generations. In his previous life, he was that destined person. In this life, he arrived even faster than before. That destined person. When he climbed over a familiar steep slope and looked up, he saw a young and beautiful female cultivator. If an ordinary person saw her, they would praise her as a celestial fairy. But to Ni Xing Tian, women were different. He cursed inwardly, but did not rush forward. Without a doubt, the girl before him was already a cultivator. Currently, he was just a level to chi refining small fry. It was fine if he didn't look closely. But upon closer inspection, Ni Xing Tian clearly wasn't practicing an ordinary sword technique, but a divine ability. A top-tier sword-based foundation establishment girl actually had a divine ability suited for her. Even if he was a transmigrator, carrying the memories of his past life, he wouldn't dare have such a beautiful dream. Which top-tier sect from the central state had sent a core disciple out for travel? Ni Xing Tian was startled, thinking his tracks might have been discovered. He hurriedly and cautiously slid down the slope. But just as he turned his head, a wooden sword was pointing straight at his throat. Who sent you? Is it the minister of the Zhuan? Or has the Taiyin Sect discovered our tracks? Facing the wooden sword pressed against his throat, Ni Xing Tian decisively chickened out. But just as he was thinking of an excuse, a voice drifted leisurely from the direction of the temple. Our sect must have already become famous far and wide. This young talent must be here to join our sect, right? Ni Xing Tian looked sideways and saw a handsome young man wearing tattered Taoist robes, leaning against the door frame, looking at him with a smile. Gold attribute, purple attribute, decisive in killing, meets apprenticeship requirements. I looked at the youth before me, secretly amazed. This clearly looks like a protagonist template. Too bad he's a guy. Seeing this, Ni Xing Tian cupped his hands. I am just passing by. No intention to disturb. I raised my hand to interrupt Ni Xing Tian. My eyes narrowed slightly, as if I had sensed something. You carry the scent of karma on you. This is time. Hearing this, Ni Xing Tian's heart didn't dare look up into my eyes. Does he know I'm a transmigrator? Would this big shot kidnap me for research? While Ni Xing Tian was having a wild brainstorm, I was also racking my brains, trying to find a way to fool this transmigrator. Kid, you carry a great karma, but it's hard to say if it's good or bad. Ni Xing Tian was stunned, feeling that the senior before him was warning him of something. Followed up, Senior. What does that mean? However, I showed a look of slight hesitation. Forget it, you are somewhat destined with me. Are you willing to take me as your master? Ni Xing Tian was slightly dazed. He looked at me with some disbelief, hesitating to speak, as if seeing through his thoughts. I laughed with disdain. You ultimately look down on the people of the world too much. What you consider a supreme treasure in our eyes is only people of the world. What you consider a supreme treasure is just something insignificant. Go and take the luck that belongs to you. It's a pity your vision is short-sighted. You don't recognize what a true opportunity is. Yingling, let him go. Ni Xing Tian cupped his hands, stepped into the temple, but when he reached under the statue, he found that the small stone in his memory was already gone. What's going on? Where did it go? Just as Ni Xing Tian was confused, my voice came from behind him again. The thing you're looking for was used by me to steady the table leg. Hearing this, Ni Xing Tian walked straight to the wooden table, stone like 1,000-year-old into his hand. A huge weight was finally lifted from his heart. Li Yingling watched Ni Xing Tian leave. Then she also stepped into the temple. Master, you're just letting him go like that? Hearing Li Yingling's words, I immediately dropped the act of a practice at home first. Your master is heading out for a bit. At this time, Ni Xing Tian had a clear goal, heading straight for the nearest small town. Refining this piece of 1,000-year-old ancient jade. However, one thing still weighed on his mind. My words were still circling in his head. Did I really miss out on the true opportunity? Ni Xing Tian cleared all distracting thoughts and finally reached his destination a day later. However, when he arrived at the inn, he actually encountered disciples. You should know those people had bullied him relentlessly. So as soon as he was reborn, Ni Xing Tian had fled overnight. He cursed his bad luck inwardly. Unfortunately, what he feared most happened. One of the Qingfeng Sect disciples scanned the first floor and saw Ni Xing Tian with his head down. He hurriedly reached out to pull the sleeve of the leading senior brother. The senior brother followed his gaze. Then his eyes narrowed. He led for disciples toward Ni Xing Tian's table. Aren't you that kid listed on the Hongming? Toward Ni Xing Tian's table. Aren't you that kid listed on the Hongming board? Ni Xing Tian knew he couldn't hide anymore. He scanned them, none were at Foundation Establishment, except for the leading senior at level 5 Qi Refining. The rest were at level 2 or 3. Although he was only at level 2 Qi Refining. The secret techniques remaining in his mind from his past life were enough to defeat these few newly recruited Qi Refining rookies. Strike first and feel good. Strike late and get beaten. Ni Xing Tian chose to reaching out to grab a nearby chopstick. The spiritual energy in his body suddenly erupted. However, facing Ni Xing Tian's sudden outburst, the senior brother was already facing the incoming chopstick. He just gave a cold laugh. His level 5 Qi Refining cultivation instantly erupted. Then he slammed his palm toward Ni Xing Tian's head. The chopstick and palm clashed rapidly, but the outcome defied everyone's expectations. The chopstick in Ni Xing Tian's hand actually pierced through the and continued straight toward the lead senior's head. Just as he was about to succeed, a sharp and fierce golden core aura suddenly exploded. Ni Xing Tian looked to the side. He saw a white-haired old man looking at him with an indifferent expression. The second elder of the Qingfeng Sect. Mid-golden core stage, he was screwed. Just as this thought rose in his mind, that massive spiritual energy and had already violently into Ni Xing Tian. The hit landed. Ni Xing Tian felt his internal organs shattered by this second blow. Finally stood up, deserting the sect and attacking fellow disciples. According to Qingfeng Sect rules, you shall be lit like a sky lantern. Ni Xing Tian had no room. The meager spiritual energy in his body had been scattered. In his mind, my words echoed again. In his mind, my words echoed again. He had ultimately been carried away by his ego. That senior's offer to take him as a disciple was perhaps just a way to save his life. An almighty being who can see through the torrent of time. How could they not have calculated their own next move? Just as Li Yingling was falling into despair, a familiar voice suddenly drifted over. Stop. How about giving me some face? The second elder's gaze quickly snapped after failing to sense any cultivation from this young man. The expression on his face finally shifted. And this Taoist friend I shook my head slightly, picked up a pair of chopsticks from the side, and gently extended them forward. A mysterious and profound sword erupted wildly from the chopsticks. A divine ability. The second elder suppressed the dread in his heart, instantly turned gentle. This person is a traitor to my Qingfeng Sect. Taoist friend in terms of both logic and reason. You really shouldn't be stopping me. Sigh. I don't wish to use my status to oppress others. But this man shares a certain destiny with me. Could you perhaps spare his life? I can offer compensation. The second elder pondered for a moment before shaking his head. If I just let him go like this, my Qingfeng Sect will have zero prestige left in the outside world. Let out a loud laugh. Since I entered your Qingfeng Sect, have you ever once treated me like a disciple? 3 years since joining, and I spent 3 years digging in spirit mines. Back then, from my village, a total of 17 disciples were recruited together. Alive. The second elder's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly shouted, "Shut up! A traitor actually dares to spread rumors about my Qingfeng Sect." So I was actually the one on the side of justice. I knew someone with the heavily loyal Li Yingling wouldn't just desert his sect for no reason. Thinking of this, I quickly used the trait panel to look at the old man. Shengguan Hong, mid-stage golden core cultivation, decrepit and plagued by inner demons. Seeing the traits. The moment I saw those traits, my confidence surged instantly. Turns out he's just a sickly old wreck. I thought the Qingfeng Sect was some prestigious righteous sect, but it seems you're nothing more than blood-sucking parasites. Now, you old dog, either tuck your tail and or I'll twist your dog head off and kick it around like a ball today. As I spoke, the sword chi coiled around the chopsticks roared fiercely, looking ready to strike the moment things went south. Where would the second elder find the courage Never mind the unknown cultivation of the person in front of him? Just this display of a divine ability. Even if the opponent were just a greenhorn at the early golden core stage, the second elder's expression remained unchanged. But he was already frantically thinking how to speak without losing face. At that moment, a flattering voice called out, "Fellow Taoists, please don't fight." My spiritual sense swept over. It was a middle-aged man wearing the uniform of the chief of the Zhuan Wu Kingdom. His cultivation was at the mid-stage Foundation Establishment. Senior practitioners, is there nothing that can't be talked through? Must you resort to violence? Upon hearing this, felt an instant wave of relief. Since the bureau chief has spoken, then my Qingfeng Sect will give you the space. I didn't say much either. I just reached out and grabbed the collapsed Li Yingling and transformed into a streak of red light, leaving the two behind as we quickly returned to the ruined temple. Li Yingling endured the pain and spoke. Senior, for your life-saving intervention. Hearing this, I felt a bit awkward. About that, you should thank my eldest disciple's
confused
first. Gaze. I didn't offer an explanation. Being able to show off a divine ability at the critical moment was mostly thanks to my eldest disciple indeed
With a
being
golden
a top-tier
trait.
talent. He actually managed to grasp the basics of the divine ability in just a short while, and at the crucial moment, I received the synchronized reward from the system.
Probably wouldn't have been able
To scare off that Qingfeng
While
Sect Elder,
reflecting so
I
easily.
used my spiritual energy to probe our surroundings. Li Yinglin's current situation wasn't very optimistic. As his meridians were
But
currently
looking at
riddled
his
with
expression,
holes. I found he wasn't showing any signs of pain. Kid, you've got quite a high pain tolerance. I praised him, then turned my gaze toward Li Yingling. Disciple, start the pot and brew the pills. Soon, a stench of herbal medicine began to waft through the air. Li Yingling looked at this medicinal liquid, which had an even more bizarre color than the previous
and
one,
felt
a sense of relief in her heart. So Master wasn't just messing with me before. Li Yingling, enduring the pain, propped himself up. When he saw the deep green droplets, wrapped in spiritual energy, a bad feeling slowly rose within him. Surely this isn't meant to be swallowed, right? Sure enough, in the next moment, I controlled the medicine and brought it to Li Yingling's lips. Open up, my alchemy skills are decent. Swallow this and I guarantee you'll be fine. Li Yingling, who could face intense pain without flinching, finally
How does this
had a
look
change
anything
of
like a
expression.
pill?
And I've never heard of anyone using a cooking pot for alchemy. A true man can face bloodshed, but he cannot face a broom dipped in
seeing
my
filth.
confident expression, Li Yingling couldn't bear to refuse. He closed his eyes and yanked his mouth open. If I die, I die. As expected, the taste of this medicine didn't let its color down. Carrying a terrifying bitterness bloomed from the tip of his tongue straight to his soul. Li Yingling's expression became increasingly distorted, but to his surprise, as the intense rejection and burning sensation traveled down his esophagus, the components contained within this medicinal liquid began
by
to
the
slowly
campfire
nourish
in the
him. Ruined temple. I assigned the roasted rabbit head to today's greatest contributor, Li Yingling. Then I gave half a rabbit to Li Yingling, who gave half a rabbit to Li Yingling, was no longer in any major danger. Aside from that medicinal liquid tasting terrible, its effects were actually quite excellent. But looking at the half rabbit on the plate before him, which smelled and looked delicious, Li Yingling didn't make a move. It wasn't that he wasn't
felt
hungry. He had no reason to eat this rabbit. Looking at the silent Li Yingling, speaking leisurely, the rabbit didn't come with
Li
a deed of
Yingling
sale.
naturally
Understood the hidden meaning in my words. No, it's just that I haven't repaid Senior's life-saving grace yet. I haven't repaid it yet. I looked at the desperately explaining
nodding
Li
in agreement
Yingling with a smile on the surface. However, under the table, my hand was frantically signaling toward Li
Dear disciple,
Yingling. Quick, give me an assist. Seeing this, Li Yingling immediately understood. She put down the rabbit head
and her
in her
tone
hand.
turned
Cold. You're penniless right now. Never mind that your life was saved by my master. Even the destiny you rely on most was given to you by my master. You keep thinking we're trying to trick you, but ask yourself, are you even worthy of that? My master being willing to give you a chance is your honor. I don't know what master sees in you, but personally I think, with your aptitude, you're not fit to enter our sect. Li Yingling shook his head helplessly. It's not that I'm ungrateful. It's just that I still have many things to do, and I can't stay in the sect for long. Hearing Li Yingling's sincere explanation, I nodded my head in deep agreement. Our sect is different. As long as your heart is with the sect, you may go to the ends of the earth. Go! Only then did Li Yingling pick up his chopsticks. Disciple it is then. Repaying kindness was part of his code. Perhaps taking a master now is the true opportunity after his rebirth. If it turns out to be the worst case is he'll just find a chance to run away again. Successfully recruited disciple, distributing matching cultivation technique. Hanyu on demon bone body refining in conjunction with the heavenly demon Dao physique. Disciple recruitment task complete. Spirit gathering ray. Seeing the system set. Spirit gathering ray. Seeing the system's settlement page. I nodded with great satisfaction. Li Yingling looked at the dazed Li Yingling, wondering what master saw in him. Maybe the sect really was just that desperate for people. But as it was her first time being a senior sister, she felt quite excited at the thought. Her gaze drifted toward me, only to find me looking completely miserable. What's going on? He got a new disciple. Shouldn't he be happy? Li Yingling wasn't the only one who noticed. Li Yingling saw it too. Master, are you all right? Realizing my expression had been caught, I heard his words, and quickly shook my head. I was just studying your junior brother's cultivation manual. Hearing this, Li Yingling hurriedly waved his hands. Master, I have my own cultivation
didn't say
method.
much.
Just toss the system's Hunyuan, Demon Bone Body Refining Divine Art to him. Take a look at this manual first. If you don't think it's up to par, you can go back to your own. Hearing that it wasn't a forced requirement, Li Yingling felt a weight lift off his chest. But as he reached out to take the book, which faintly emanated the scent of blood, his spirit jolted. He immediately began scanning the pages at lightning speed. One look was all it took. The more he read, the more Yingling saw the shock in his eyes, and comforted him with the air of an experienced senior. Junior brother, it's just a cultivation manual. It's normal for it to have many revised versions. It's also normal to find some parts
Just
confusing.
practice
it boldly, however. Li Yingling looked at Li Yingling in pure disbelief. Senior sister, is our sect full of demonic cultivators? Li Yingling was about to argue back, but then he handed the manual over to her. Filled with doubt, Li Yingling flipped through a few pages, and promptly stuffed the book back to Li Xing. Stuffed it back to Li Yingling. Good grief, what kind of manual is this bloody? Senior sister is tired. Go into sleep
Find a spot
to lie down and rest yourself. Didn't even finish her half-eaten rabbit head. She scurried to her bedding and lay down. Hearing their conversation, I felt a bit helpless. That book isn't a demonic manual. Li Yingling looked down at the contents again. To cultivate the foundation establishment stage, first slay 1,000 blood beasts. Disassemble the limb. The skeletal
Master,
root. Is your bar for demonic a bit too low? Blood beast doesn't necessarily mean humans. Just find some mindless spirit beasts to fill the quota. Li Yingling looked at the scroll in his hand again. If what Master said was true, the power of this manual was far greater than the one he practiced in his previous life, and it was perfectly compatible with the heavenly demon Dao physique fused with the Millennium Ancient Jade. Yingling's worries vanished, but mine didn't. That miserable look earlier was for a reason. The spirit gathering ray rewarded by the system was just a blueprint. It wasn't a click and place deal. Not only did I have to provide the materials, had to build it by hand. Stones. Talk about a scam. Where was I supposed to get the money or stones for this? In the early morning, I compared the system's blueprint carefully, then stuck a branch in the ground as a marker, planning to build a spirit gathering ray. After all, this wasn't a place where spiritual energy naturally gathered, nor was there a spirit vein flow. Back when Li Yingling was practicing, I just tossed out some spirit stones to make a crude Li Yingling's high-consumption body now. That had to stop. Well thinking, I found the right spot. Stuck in another branch, only to hear a loud boom. Dirt from a distance went flying into the air. I annoyedly waved the dust clouds away, and looked at Li Yingling, who was holding a wooden sword, working hard to blast a giant hole. Who digs a hole like that? Li Yingling was very confused. If I don't dig it like this, how do I dig it? We have to bury the and then the dirt needs to be backfilled. You've blasted it everywhere. What are we going to use for backfill? That tiny head of yours? Hearing Master's words, Yingling silently glanced at the dirt scattered all over the place, but she still said it with a hint of grievance. But if I don't dig like this, it'll take forever. I shook my head helplessly. I didn't tell you to finish it in one day. Just dig a bit whenever you're free after practicing. Wait until your junior brother finishes refining that broken stone. Then you can bring him along to play. Li Yingling nodded and gently began to control her wooden sword to dig the hole. Having finished all this, I lazily lay back down on my wooden bed. Now I just had to wait for Li Yingling to finish refining and ask him if he had any good ways to earn spirit stones. The missing materials for the ray required spirit stones. As a reincarnator, he surely knew some ways to make money. Or perhaps some unopened ancient tombs. A few hours passed quickly. Li Yingling had successfully refined the Millennium Ancient Jade. Feeling the spiritual energy flowing freely through his meridians again, he slowly stood up, only to meet his master's eager gaze. This sight immediately made him feel uneasy. Master, what's wrong? A slightly wicked smile appeared on my face. You must have had many lucky encounters in your past life, right? Are there any secret realms nearby? Or perhaps some heavenly treasures? Hearing this, and the Li Yingling let out a huge sigh of relief. The secret realms around here were long ago cleaned out by the local sects big and small. As for lucky encounters, you'd have to go to the central plains to find those. The world's spirit veins converge. Is there really nowhere to earn spirit stones? I'm planning to build a spirit gathering ray, and I'm short on cash for materials. Hearing this, Li Yingling, if Master trusts me, there are plenty of spirit stones to be harvested at the Qingfeng mine. I dug stones there for 3 years. I know exactly how the mine operates. There's only one golden core sitting guard. If Master is confident, there might be a profit to be made. I didn't rush to agree. I just looked at Li Yingling, sensing his master's gaze. Li Yingling cupped his hands. I have absolutely no intention of using my next words left him stunned. Then this time, it's not for the stones, but for your revenge. The pocket money is just a bonus. Li Yingling stared blankly at his master, but I didn't give him a chance to react. Tell me the location of the mine first. Master is going to scout the place out. Dazed, Li Yingling picked up a branch and started drawing a map on the floor. North of the Baxi Mountains, right around here. I nodded, then produced 3 talismans and gave them to him. One of these can block a golden core strike. The other 2 are 1,000-mile teleportation talismans. If trouble comes, don't listen to your senior sister. Just take her and based on the direction he pointed, it would take me 2 days even for a round trip. Feeling slightly more at ease, I departed via Earth's escape Master in the afternoon. Li Yingling took a deep breath and pulled out the Hanyu on Demon Bone Body Refining Divine Art. Since Master trusts me this much, I might as well try cultivating this. As soon as he started, the feeling was different for Li Yingling. Different for Li Yingling, as he could feel the Tao physique within his body being fully activated. This cultivation manual seems to be a perfect fit for Master me. Really does give the best stuff. In the blink of an eye, it was already dark. Senior sister had already returned and was sitting by the fire. Li Yingling noticed Li Yingling finishing his meditation. Where's Master? Where did he go? Li Yingling didn't hide anything and told her everything. Upon hearing the answer, Li Yingling seemed a bit down, but she didn't say anything else. She just picked up a wild chicken she caught today. Junior brother, you haven't reached Foundation establishment yet, so you can't fast. You must be hungry, right? Li Yingling nodded blankly a little. Then go ahead and cook this chicken. What did he know about cooking? Just as he was about to refuse, he remembered Master's instructions. Yingling is still young. You need to look after her. With a sigh, he took the chicken and began to cook. Half an hour later, a roar erupted from within the ruined temple. Junior brother, what on earth is this mess you cooked? Are you trying to assassinate me today? Was the first day since Master left the temple. Li Yingling stepped out of the temple and looked at Li Yingling not far away. She was currently holding her wooden sword, constantly manipulating her divine ability to blast a large tree. The tree followed the flow of the sword chi and fell decisively. I have to say, senior sister's drive is quite impressive. She even practices her divine ability while logging for the house, and her progress looks remarkable. With this kind of talent, the story about Master being from the Central Plains must be true, though I don't know why Master is so poor. Could it be that Master ran away from Plains Sect just like I did? Although this life's Li Yingling no longer easily trusts women. Looking at the little senior sister Master entrusted to him, he still forced out a somewhat strained smile. On the first day Master was gone, Li Yingling woke up very early. Today's goal was to collect all the timber needed to build the cabin. After all, being under one roof with Tamen, as someone from a noble family, was still a bit hard for her to accept. To be honest, when she was with Master, she didn't really feel like that young-faced, handsome man was her teacher, but more like a very close friend. Many thoughts flashed through her mind, but Li Yingling still took down the tree in front of her with one strike. Her mastery over the divine ability recently had become increasingly effortless. Sensing a gaze from behind, Li Yingling turned around and saw her bargain junior brother. Though she didn't understand why Master recruited him, she respected Master's decision completely. However, when this bargain flashed her that slightly dim-witted smile, Li Yingling really wanted to tell Master, next time you recruit a disciple, can you do a simple IQ test? Looking at Li Yingling's goofy grin, Li Yingling frowned slightly. Back in the mortal world, she was known as a gifted prodigy. She truly had no experience dealing with the low IQ crowd, and didn't know how to properly interact with a mentally lacking junior brother. Especially since he'd been practicing like a savage for days, yet was still practicing, hovering between life and death. As the senior sister, since Master isn't here, I should give him a proper nudge. Li Yingling patted the fallen tree beside her. Use your spiritual energy to carefully control it, and turn this tree into wooden planks. This will greatly improve your spiritual energy. Yingling was speechless. Hard labor is hard labor. Why use control precision as an excuse? But my silhouette appeared in his mind once more. Take good care of your senior sister. Thinking of this, he could only nod helplessly. Yes, senior sister. Having received Li Yingling's answer, Li Yingling didn't linger and quickly sped off as a streak of red light She had seen the manual Li Yingling was practicing. It required quite a lot of demon beast bloodstones. As his senior sister, she naturally had to help him out. Since he's building the house for her, she would go get some bloodstones for him. But master, please come back soon. The food junior brother cooks is truly inedible. He even drinks the chicken's bathwater with gusto. Meanwhile, at the Qingfeng mine, I carefully bypassed the main entrance, where the cultivators were patrolling, and slowly observed the situation in the mine below. Foundation establishment disciples. The rest were chi refinement cultivators occasionally, coming out of the mine shafts. My gaze swept over the area, and quickly locked onto a warehouse-like building. It covered a large area. But strangely, there were no guards. The golden core cultivator Li Yingling mentioned is likely stationed right in there. I took out paper and pen from my spatial ring and quickly cross-referenced the routes and buildings, drawing up a rough sketch. I take this sketch back to discuss it with Li Yingling to see what the specific situation was. However, just as I finished the sketch and was tucking it back into my ring, someone suddenly stepped into the range of my spiritual sense. A longsword instantly appeared in my hand. My spiritual sense swept over quickly, only to find that the person who stepped into range was just a mortal without a shred of cultivation. What's the deal? I hid my aura and cautiously scouted toward the newcomer. I soon saw the person I'd sensed. It was a short, very scrawny, little girl wearing ragged hemp clothes. Her face was filthy, but her eyes were full of spirit. Her face was filthy, but her eyes were full of spirit. I watched her struggling to walk in one direction, only to unconsciously loop back to the start. She's trapped in a labyrinth array. I should have known the perimeter of the Qingfeng mine was rigged with rays. At that thought, I immediately used the system to check her status panel. Ning Qianqian, unwavering, heavily loyal, does not meet recruitment criteria. Looks like there's a high chance she escaped from the mine. After a bit of thought, I decided to take her away first. Maybe I can get some useful info out of her. A while later, Ning Qianqian, tied to a tree, was weeping bitterly to me. Wait, great immortal, exalted immortal. I really am just lost. Ning Qianqian peeked at the person who tied her up. Currently, he was wearing a demonic ghost mask and was staring at her with very cold eyes. The Qingfeng Sect really is wrong. Father must have been taken by those Qingfeng immortals. I, on the other hand, was looking at Ning Qianqian speechlessly. If I had a choice, I wouldn't have tied her to a tree either. But this girl was just too uncooperative, spitting, throwing tantrums, playing the lunatic. If I hadn't seen through her, she'd probably still be faking being a simpleton. I'm not from the Qingfeng Sect. Ning Qianqian continued to wail. What Qingfeng Sect? I don't know anything. I'm really just lost. I didn't say anything else. Pulled a large flatbread out of my spatial ring. Then under Ning Qianqian's terrified gaze, I stuffed it into her mouth. When the soft bread hit her mouth, Ning Qianqian, who had been starving for days, gave up the struggle. Father, I'm useless. I didn't save you and now I'm going to die. Watching Ning Qianqian frantically devouring the bread, I silently withdrew the rope and handed a water flask to her. The bread went down quickly with the water. After finishing, Ning Qianqian looked over expectantly. I let out a helpless sigh. What exactly are you doing here? Are you someone who escaped from the mine? Ning Qianqian looked timidly at the masked man. I'm really just lost. Hearing that, I didn't push from the spatial ring. Some loose silver and flatbread. If you won't say, I won't ask. Go straight this way. There is a small nearby. Ning Qianqian looked in surprise at the items forced into her arms, and couldn't help but shout. Great immortal, wait. Facing Ning Qianqian's shout, I turned slightly to look at the conflicted girl. Ning Qianqian looked hesitant, then cautiously asked the immortal, which sect are you from? I spoke without hesitation. Central State, Myriad Law Immortal Sect. Hearing this, she immediately looked like she'd long heard of the great name. As a mortal, she had never stepped into the cultivation world. How would she know anything about Central State? If her father hadn't mentioned the Clear Breeze sect, coming from a family of mountain farmers, wouldn't even know that name. Besides, between Myriad Law Immortal Sect and Clear Breeze pretty sect, obvious just from the names. Ning Qianqian steadied her emotions from the past few days, and tears suddenly started flowing. Immortal, my father and I live in my mother was frail and passed away early. It was all on my father's hard work to raise me. This year, disaster struck the village. We couldn't even have one meal in 2 days. At that time, people from Clear Breeze Sect came to trick him into cultivating. You can have anything you want. Just like that, father left me. Many other brothers were tricked away too. I let out a helpless sigh. Then how do you know they're frauds? Hearing the question, Ning Qianqian quickly took out a cloth bundle from her tattered clothes. Inside was nothing precious, but a handful of dry yellow earth. Not long after those immortals left, the food they left all turned into yellow earth. The auntie next door and Niuzi ate the white buns given by the immortals, and soon they were bloated to death by this earth. I didn't reply, only reached out to pinch the yellow earth. Even now, this earth still held some lingering spiritual energy. I didn't expect Clear Breeze Sect to even fake life-saving grain. Facing Ning Qianqian's expectant gaze, I only felt a bit helpless. Right now, if I said I'd get some spirit stones from the mine, it wouldn't be a big deal. But to snatch someone away under the backup of the Clear Breeze Sect wouldn't be easy. I sighed, looking sincerely at the thin little girl. These mountains are rugged and hard to travel, with many sheer cliffs. I wonder what hardships this little girl faced to make it here. Looking at Ning Qianqian, my expression turned serious. Rescuing your father can't be rushed. I need to go back and make a plan first. Are you willing to come with me now? Ning Qianqian was slightly dazed. Can I wait for you here? But before she could finish, I cut her off with a raised hand. You're not stupid, you should understand. Staying behind isn't necessarily good for your father. Ning Qianqian went silent for a moment, then nodded. If you decide not to save him, can you bring me back here? I nodded, then took her on a wild dash of earth evasion. Not caring about saving spiritual energy now, I just wanted to get back to the ruined temple. After a day of travel, the temple was only one more dash away. Now Ning Qianqian was leaning against a large tree munching on bread. I stood guard nearby with eyes closed. On the way, Ning Qianqian would ask about the cultivation world. Great Immortal, is Clear Breeze Sect really a righteous sect in your world? Based on the local reputation, yes. I spoke flatly without opening my eyes. They also take government bounties to slay and demons. They hide their misdeeds very well. At least I hadn't heard anything before. Ning Qianqian understood these points. After all, she lacked experience. She wasn't stupid. But hearing this answer and remembering her father's back as he left, she was still fearful. Immortal, what about your sect? Do they do things like that too? Hearing this, I couldn't help but look up. If we did, I wouldn't have been soft-hearted enough to take you. Facing her 100,000 whys along the way, I remained quite patient. Anyway, once I conveniently rescued her father, I probably wouldn't see this girl again. Hearing the answer, Ning Qianqian nodded in total agreement. After all, that was the truth. But she still felt some unease in her heart. After a few words of small talk, the two set out on the return journey. After about half an hour of earth evasion, we were nearly at the ruined temple. But I didn't emerge directly. Instead, I grabbed her and returned to the surface nearby. Because from this vicinity, a thick, overwhelming scent of blood hit us. My expression turned grim. Could something have happened to them? But the teleportation talisman hadn't triggered. Such a thick scent of blood must have been a fierce battle. It couldn't have been an instant kill. So the teleportation talisman should have at least activated. Ning Qianqian had no cultivation, so she couldn't sense the blood ahead. But she cautiously peeked at me. My divine sense swept frantically toward the temple. I soon found two familiar auras inside. They were even alive and well. Then what's with this scent of blood? Li Yingling has already been reborn once. How could he still mess around with Li Yingling? The rest of the way was very short. I chose not to continue with earth evasion, but manipulated spiritual energy to fly with her. Experiencing flight for the first time, Ning Qianqian couldn't help being excited. But when the ruined temple came into view, and the immortal flew straight toward it, she completely lost her smile. That temple looked long out of repair, looking rather eerie and grim. What really terrified her was the pile of flesh and bones outside the temple. Ning Qianqian gulped. Immortal, are you planning to slay some demons? But my response nearly made her faint. What slaying demons? We've arrived. What righteous sect would have a leader's home covered in skeletons? The smell of blood hasn't even faded. Ning Qianqian felt she had been tricked again. Not a single one of these cultivators is good. I didn't have time to worry about her pale face because I was also getting angry. It was green hills and clear water when I left. The air was fresh. Now I come home to the temple entrance. I set down the silent Ning Qianqian and shouted loudly, "What are you two brats doing?" Hearing the voice, Li Yingling was the first to rush out, excitedly running to hug her master. "Master, you're finally back." Before I could even question her, Li Yingling also walked out, covered in blood. "Master, you're finally back." Pushing Li Yingling aside, I pointed at the landscape made of animal heads. "What is going on here?" Li Yingling's gaze she naturally understood what Master was angry about. She immediately shifted the blame. This was all caused by Junior Brother's cultivation. Standing aside trembling, Ning Qianqian, who still held a sliver, and her heart instantly died. Though she didn't know the cultivation world, no righteous sect should ever have such a bloody way of practicing. I turned my gaze to the blood-soaked Li Yingling, with a look of stern interrogation. Facing his master's questioning eyes, Li Yingling silently looked toward his senior sister. He hesitated to speak about her shifting the blame. Most of the animals were caught by her. And as for the current situation, theoretically, senior sister bears more responsibility. After all, at the very beginning, Li Yingling had planned to find a far-off place, to dig a hole and bury these skeletons. But the reality was just as his sister said. The source of this mess was indeed caused by his own cultivation. So Li Yingling could only bow his head and apologize. "Master, I got a bit carried away with training lately. I'll handle this right away." Meanwhile, Li Yingling focused, her gaze beside her master. Observing the tiny Ning Qianqian, she thought her so small, and her face was terribly pale. "She looks even worse off than second junior brother. Is this a new disciple you've taken?" "No, it's the fine work of the Clear Breeze sect." I let out a sigh, then gestured for Ning Qianqian follow me into the ruined temple. Although Ning Qianqian was scared, she could only follow along inside. "Master, how is the situation over there?" Li Yingling spoke while handing over a cup of tea. I shook my head slightly at the question, briefly explaining Ning Qianqian's story and recounting what I saw at the mine. After hearing the whole story, Li Yingling nodded calmly. As a daughter of a noble clan, these kinds of devouring people hold these matters. She had heard of many since childhood. Her own family had likely done such things too. She looked with a sympathetic gaze at the silent, head-bowed Ning Qianqian. "We will do our best to help you. Don't worry." After a while, Li Yingling finished cleaning up outside and returned. I didn't say much, but took out the map of the mine terrain and handed it to Li Yingling. "If we plan to rescue people from the mine, is the difficulty high?" Li Yingling's eyes scanned the map. If Master had a deity transformation cultivation, it wouldn't be hard at all. However, I fell into silence at those words. Li Yingling cleared his throat. With the nascent soul stage, a quick strike could also work. But I shook my head again. "Your master can currently only use the strength of the flawless golden core level." Hearing this, Li Yingling rolled the map back up. "Well, in that case, as long as the plan is sound, it shouldn't be exceptionally difficult." After the group discussed for a long time, Li Yingling hurriedly began his cultivation. According to the plan, he needed to break through to the foundation establishment stage was at the 8th level of Qi refinement. It would probably take about 2 more days. My own cultivation was at the Once Li Yingling established his foundation, I should reach the late golden core. Additionally, I had naturally gathered some intel on Clear Breeze sect. Within the sect, there is a supreme elder at the nascent soul stage. This elder might not necessarily show up, but having survived this world for a few years, I understood to prepare for the worst. Everything will surely lean toward the unluckiest scenario. Speaking of bad luck, I looked at Li Yingling, who was sipping chicken soup. This eldest disciple of mine has the great fortune trait, but having spent quite some time with her, I haven't felt like her luck is particularly good. Any ancient treasures or good stuff while walking. Noticing my staring gaze, Li Yingling put down her bowl with confusion. "Yingling, how would you rate your luck?" Li Yingling tilted her head slightly to recall how her luck was. She tilted her head and said, "It's alright, since there was nothing to do anyway." I test what alright meant in my disciple's words. I pulled 2 dice cups from my spatial ring. When it comes to luck, nothing is more direct than this. I handed a dice cup to Li Yingling. "Let's play high or low. I'm not very good at losing." I assume there's no penalty? Li Yingling casually shook the cup. While asking warily, I pulled out a half-burnt piece of firewood. "If you lose, I draw a line on your face." Li Yingling's eyes lit up. She was still at the young girl stage, so she was naturally very interested in this activity. But 10 minutes into the game, my face was a mask of annoyance. Li Yingling, her face now completely black, sat in her chair with a dazed expression, seemingly questioning her existence. Because for those 10 whole minutes, she hadn't won a single round. Even if she managed to roll 3 sixes, I could casually match those 3 sixes. There wasn't a single mark on my face. I also looked at her with great confusion. Is her great fortune trait a fake? Or is my luck just crushing hers? But recalling what happened when I first arrived in this world, I quickly discarded that thought. Back then, I was so unlucky. I'd probably choke on a sip of cold water. After several days of intensive training, it was finally time for Li Yingling to break through. With some reluctance, I took out all my remaining spirit stones and constructed a simple spirit gathering ray to provide enough energy to smoothly reach the foundation establishment stage. However, as he neared the breakthrough, Li Yingling's expression wasn't looking so good. And then at that pot that was beginning to boil, he took a deep breath, looked at me and said, "Master, actually, even without eating those pills, I'm confident I can make it. Good medicine tastes bitter." I placed the last spirit stone into position. Upon completion, dozens of spirit stones began to glow. Don't worry this time. I've researched what seasonings to add make the pill palatable and incredibly delicious. Master, are you sure you're talking about a pill and not a chicken leg senior sister chewed on? You can distrust my alchemy, but you cannot doubt my cooking. Recalling Master's cooking skills, Li Yingling felt that statement had some weight, so he looked toward his master, hoping he would keep his word. As the green water began to bubble, Li Yingling felt his own face seemed to turn just like the water, turning green as well. But just as the pill was about to be concentrated, I quickly reached into the spatial ring and took out honey and cooked flour, then mixed in some strange seasonings. Soon, the small amount of medicinal liquid was absorbed, and a round gray date pill appeared in my hand. I handed the pill to him with great satisfaction. Facing his master's encouraging gaze, he steeled his heart and decisively swallowed it, catching his sister's scrutinizing look from the side. As for the taste, Li Yingling noted that indeed alchemy and cooking have absolutely nothing in common, especially with the addition of that insane flour actually got stuck in his throat. Despite the horrific taste, the medicinal effect kicked in very fast. Li Yingling quickly entered a meditative state, absorbing the energy from the spirit stones. It seems this test subject's results weren't great. Was the flavor not strong enough to mask it? I pondered slightly, then looked over at the relieved-looking Li Yingling. Li Yingling immediately shook her head. Master, from now on, such good stuff. Let junior brother try such good stuff first. Li Yingling's breakthrough went quite smoothly. Once the stones stopped their dazzling glow, his leaking energy instantly condensed within. Master, the plan can begin. Round the Clear Breeze Sect's spirit mine, master and disciple remained in silent hiding. Li Yingling carefully observed the situation below, while keeping her eyes fixed on her second junior brother. Master, about junior brother. Isn't this too risky? Theoretically, you're in more danger than he is. Hearing this, Li Yingling looked at me with confusion, and I said this. Naturally, for the talisman that can withstand golden core attacks is still on Li Yingling. Plus the teleportation talisman, Li Yingling is disguised as a miner and has blended into the mine, just as he speculated. Those Clear Breeze Sect disciples don't care at all if there are more or fewer miners. Right now, he is pushing a cart, scanning everyone who passes by. Searching for Ning Qianqian's father. Ning Qianqian has no cultivation, so bringing her would be pointless. Thus, only the master and two disciples are in as the observer to conduct a detailed survey of the mine. While locating Ning Qianqian's father, I am the vanguard, who will strike the temporary warehouse guarded by the golden core attention to provide cover for my disciples' retreat. Yingling is the backup. If any special circumstances arise, she will step in to handle the fallout. If everything goes smoothly, Li Yingling even arranged an ultimate plan to shatter this damn mine and liberate everyone inside. Anyway, for now, all plans must wait for Li Yingling's signal. He quickly scanned the miners outside, but did not spot Ning Qianqian's father. He is likely digging inside the mine shaft. I must find a chance to sneak in. Thinking this, he glanced sideways and stealthily made a hand signal toward Master. After a brief wait, a sharp sword whistle rang out from the distance. 3 Clear Breeze Sect disciples, who were chatting nearby, suddenly looked toward the sound. 2 of them quickly rose and dashed toward it. The remaining one rang. The massive alarm in the center of the mine. The clang, clang, clang of the bell spread rapidly. Many miners stopped their work, their numb faces showing a hint of terror. Meanwhile, from inside the mine shaft, a Clear Breeze Sect disciple came running out, followed by a crowd of miners. Li Yingling's eyes quickly scanned the crowd, and he soon spotted Ning Qianqian's father. He was now so thin he was barely recognizable. If not for his chi refinement cultivation, he probably would have been dead by now. Li Yingling then glanced toward the thicket, waiting to see if the golden core expert inside would appear. That person is the key to deciding to what extent the plan can be carried out. 15 minutes later, the two disciples who went to investigate returned. The alarm was cleared. Li Yingling quickly blended into the crowd of miners. Under the direction of the Clear Breeze sect, he began walking toward the mine shaft. However, the expected golden core did not appear. I'm heading back to the sect now to report to the leader and stay sharp. Vigilant, an older Clear Breeze disciple took charge. This is a critical period. No matter what, keep the mine running normally. Everyone, pay attention. While he was speaking, Li Yingling on the other side quickly approached Ning Qianqian's father. He took the token Ning Qianqian had provided and stuffed the token into his hand. Inside the dim mine shaft, Ning Kun's gaze locked onto Li Yingling while he tightly gripped the rough, burlap-like cloth in his hand. Li Yingling didn't look at him, but only whispered Qianqian. Ning Kun's eyes lit up. Then his expression changed drastically. However, before he could speak, Li Yingling cut him off with a hand gesture. No matter what, wait, stay close to me. What are you doing? Hurry up. The Clear Breeze sect supervisor barked from the side, urging them forward. If you don't finish, you won't even get to sleep. Li Yingling ignored Ning Kun and quickly picked up a pickaxe nearby and walked forward. But before he had gone 2 steps, the pale yellow candle flames on the wall caught his eye. Looking at those candle flames, an extremely ominous feeling instantly flooded his heart. Something is wrong with this mine. There was nothing like this when I dug here in my past life. Thinking of this, he quickly grabbed the 1,000-mile teleportation cautiously following the crowd around a corner. What met his eyes then was not a mining tunnel, but an incredibly eerie and terrifying scene. Before him wasn't a narrow vein waiting to be mined, but a vast ritual ground. Several eerie heads were hung high upon the highest sacrificial altar. There were also 6 figures in black robes, sitting cross-legged, absorbing blood from the surrounding pools. Li Yingling's pupils shrank in shock. He looked at the people around him, only to find that no one else seemed to notice anything. They acted as if they were still in a crowded tunnel. This is a large-scale illusion. Can Foundation establishment immunity handle this? Or is something else protecting me from this illusion? Li Yingling suppressed what it was that allowed him to resist. Li Yingling suppressed his unease and chose to continue following the crowd for now. He had to figure out Clear Breeze sect's true plan. Most likely, upon seeing the scene, everything would have to be overturned. Li Yingling followed the crowd slowly, passing the central altar. After passing the altar and going deeper, it became a normal mine. Everyone held their mining tools, preparing to excavate. For now, it looked like a real mine. But what was that sacrificial ritual back there? This doubt was instantly resolved when the first miner swung his pickaxe. Suddenly realized everything. With every strike of the pick, a faint, dark red energy drifted from the miner's crown and surged toward the blood pool. Every miner inside was the same. Wisps of dark red energy gradually gathered into a force that could not be ignored. Li Yingling stared intensely at one miner and realized this dark red energy seemed to be extracted from the spirit root, consuming not just the miner's flesh and chi, but grinding away the very foundation of cultivation. No wonder those miners all looked like walking skeletons. Li Yingling didn't dare start digging, because based on observation, the blood chi provided was based on the spirit root. If I start digging and cause my own cultivation and spirit root to be drained, then what I release won't be mere wisps of dark red energy as thick as an arm. I would be far too conspicuous among this crowd. I must find a way out to inform Master. Li Yingling could sense those 6 black-robed figures were around the Foundation establishment stage. If Master's divine abilities are truly reliable, then fighting our way out might be a good to fight our way out. On the day he reached Foundation establishment, Master gave him a technique that fit him perfectly, and it was of extremely high quality, as if it had been prepared long ago, just waiting for his breakthrough. This made him, who thought he'd seen feel that Master was once again shrouded in mist. He scanned his eyes first to secure his surroundings. Li Yingling stuck to his philosophy: strike first and prosper, strike late and suffer. He suddenly gripped the pickaxe and walked back toward the altar. This immediately caught the attention of the guards. What are you doing? Li Yingling put on a timid expression. I need to use the latrine. The deadline is tight. Even if you do it in your pants, get back to work. But before the words finished ringing, Li Yingling suddenly appearing before the Qingfeng Sect disciples in an instant. The blade in his hand swelled like a giant cleaver, hacking straight for the opponent's head. The Qingfeng Sect disciple couldn't react in time, his face frozen in pure terror, before Li Yingling blew his head off in one move. Surprise, as he mobilized the spiritual power in his body, he seemed to faintly sense the energy of the water stone. However, before he could sense further, 6 figures in black robes suddenly stood up. Where did this brat come from to cause trouble? Master, has second junior brother been inside too long? Li Yingling couldn't help but feel worried, since Li Yingling signaled and sneaked into the mine. There had been no news. Wait a bit longer, I frowned slightly. Li Yingling has a 1,000-mile teleportation talisman. Even if he can't win, he should be fine. Receiving the answer, Li Yingling let out a deep sigh. Her master's choice. Waiting a moment, but 10 minutes later, a violent explosion echoed from within the mine. A surge of fierce and sinister spiritual power suddenly erupted from the mine entrance. This time, Li Yingling didn't need to speak. The Golden Core Elder Li Yingling predicted had already walked out of the temporary warehouse. Situation inside. Walked out of the temporary warehouse. Regardless of Li Yingling's situation, I had to intercept that Golden Core first. I decisively pulled a silver sword from my spatial ring and handed a teleportation talisman to her before heading up. Li Yingling, if you encounter danger, be decisive. Then find a place to hide and wait for Master to find you. As I spoke, I put my mask back on, turning into a red flash as I charged, making my move without hesitation, starting with an ultimate. My strongest move right now was the technique 3,000 weak water swords, swinging a strike at the Elder who was preparing to reinforce the mine. While that Elder was in a hurry to return, the plan had reached a critical moment. It was the Qingfeng Sect's lifeline. He had already crushed the polar jade talisman. As long as he stalled for a bit, other Qingfeng Sect Elders would come to reinforce. Facing my sudden killing move, by the time he noticed, there was no time left to resist. He could only squeeze his internal golden core to force up a barrier. But that sword strike seemed to slice through space-time, ignoring the opponent's defense, and pierced his heart. With just one hit, half his body along with his heart was blown into a bloody mist. I didn't pursue, my eyes fixed tightly on the Elder. Golden Core is not nascent soul. If the heart is destroyed, he logically shouldn't be able to survive. But this Elder appeared to be perfectly fine. A bit spooky. Let's check his tags with the system first. Mo Chen, mid-stage Golden Core. Acquired demonic physique. Heart demon infested. I frowned slightly. Looks like there's more to the Qingfeng Sect. The Elder stood up with a look of relief. Black and red spiritual power suddenly erupted from his body, quickly devouring the nearby Qi-refining disciples who hadn't reacted, and the second and third level miners. As the miners were sucked into withered husks, his body one by turned into husks. His body actually gradually restored to its original state. That strike just now broke straight through my golden core protection. This person's cultivation should be above mine. What I need to do now is stall for time. Wait for the other elders in the sect to return. Thinking this, Mo Chen quickly spoke up. Is there some misunderstanding, fellow Taoist? Even if he's late-stage golden core, my tone was flat and calm. An evil cultivator sects mine, acting on behalf of heaven, is my duty. Hearing the response, Mo Chen let out a sigh of relief. As long as we're talking, I just need to stall for time. This idiot! So what if they're at the late gold core stage? The nascent soul ancestor from the sect will be here soon. Mo Chen quickly cupped his hands. My Qingfeng Sect is part of the Southern Dan Province Immortal Alliance sect. How can you call us evil cultivators? Seeing Mo Chen cup his hands, I felt a surge of joy. Villains really do die from talking too much. What kind of brain thinks I would keep wasting my breath on him? Hacking the body doesn't work well. Then I'll hack the head. Thinking this, I flickered right in front of Mo Chen, swinging down at his head without hesitation. Yet this sword strike still missed. Mo Chen suddenly released a dark red blood mist, shrouding the area. Fellow Taoist, you're the evil cultivator, launching a sneak attack. His angry voice echoed through the blood mist. If I hadn't been on guard, that strike might have actually taken my head off. I didn't answer. Spiritual energy eroding all the blood like a flood. Mo Chen knew he couldn't maintain the mist state, and quickly solidified his body again. But at that moment, a sudden change occurred. From the mine cave behind, several mangled figures flew out. I looked over, and saw Li Yingling. Li Yingling's crimson eyes were filled with endless killing intent. His entire body was coated in bloody spiritual energy. Has he turned demonic? Why does he look so sinister? And when Li Yingling saw his master, he shouted in a frenzied yet respectful tone, "Master!" Mo Chen was also staring at Li Yingling in shock. You guys are the real evil cultivators, right? Facing the Elder's roar, I responded with an even more violent divine technique. My second disciple's condition looks bad right now. Looking like this, he doesn't seem like there's no problem. Ending this quickly is the right strategy. Mo Chen was terrified, feeling his entire life force locked down. Just as I was about to finish him off, Li Yingling suddenly spoke to interrupt. Master, wait! Spare his life for a moment. After a slight hesitation, I pulled my power back, not killing him in one blow. Seeing his master hold back, Li Yingling let out a sigh of relief. Then he flickered, pressing the bloody spiritual energy in his hand onto the Elder's head. The pinned Elder realized with horror, the blood power in his own body was being frantically drained by that Foundation establishment brat. A Foundation establishment draining a golden core was unheard of, but Elder Mo Chen felt it very clearly. It was actually a suppression coming from the cultivation this kid practiced was more evil than his own. I watched my disciple acting like an evil cultivator, and couldn't help but frown. What's the situation? Li Yingling could only slightly turn his head to look at his evil formation here. They used to consume those miners, spiritual roots and blood chi to practice evil arts. I was suddenly speechless. I was asking what about is your deal? Li Yingling was stunned by the question. What is your deal? Li Yingling was stunned. Then he looked down at his own blood-saturated spirit body and realized I'm fine. It's just that Master's seems to interact with those blood pools. Having said that, Li Yingling's expression looked a bit off. He'd never heard of a righteous cultivation technique that could interface with an evil formation, and the technique he was practicing now actually had a higher priority than those evil cultivators. It wasn't the time to dig for details. I quickly spoke. As long as your reinforcements are likely coming soon. How's the situation? I've wiped out all the Foundation establishment cultivators. Once you grab the stuff from the warehouse, we should get out of here. I'll handle this guy. I nodded slightly. My figure bolted straight for the warehouse. However, the sight that met my eyes made me freeze for a second. The spirit stones before me weren't the usual pale blue, but a pale red, emitting a thick, bloody stench. Of all the things these people could ruin, they had to go and ruin spirit stones. But I couldn't care about that for now. I could only mindlessly grab every single spirit stone and stuff them into my spatial ring. By the time I stepped back out, Li Yingling had already finished off Mo Chen. Now looked like a shriveled corpse. While Li Yingling's cultivation had reached mid-stage Foundation establishment, according to the plan, once successful, we needed to prepare the simplest possible teleportation array. So simple that the destination was a mystery, and the distance was anyone's guess. From my spatial ring, I tossed Li Yingling a few blood-red spirit stones, just to give this raid enough juice to run. At that exact moment, Li Yingling emerged from the mine, carrying Ning Qianqian's father, followed closely by a crowd of miners from the tunnels. You've seen it for yourselves. Staying here means certain death. Li Yingling's hands never stopped moving. I've drawn a teleportation array. How far it goes, or where it lands is totally uncertain. You only get this one shot. Those who are willing step later at the mining site. Even though the Qingfeng Sect people rushed as fast as they could, they were still one step too late. A group led by Shangwen, including several Golden Core elders, arrived, only to find the place nearly deserted. It turns out the teleportation array was indeed very unstable. As the group swept the area with their divine sense, they detected a few miners who were still within their sensing range. You lot go chase them. I'll search this place myself. Shangwen landed quickly after speaking. This was his only chance to break through to nascent soul. On the surface, he looked calm, but inside, he was already boiling with monstrous rage. He didn't even need to step into the mine. The moment his divine sense swept through, he knew everything was gone, but he still went inside, refusing to give up hope. The once overflowing bloodstone pools were bone dry. Even the painstakingly crafted array had a corner blown off. He had been so close. Even if it was just the lowest grade, he would have accepted it. Shangwen stood there dazed for who knows how long, until the other four elders returned with the captured miners, and finally snapped him out of it. Shangwen bloodshot eyes suddenly grabbing a miner directly into his hand, and began the soul-searching technique. By the time he finished searching the last miner's soul, Shangwen violently spat out a mouthful of blood. An evil cultivator capable of controlling the bloodstone pool, and a masked man and woman. The man's cultivation was at least and he possessed a powerful divine technique. Thinking of this, Shangwen took out a brush, quickly following his memory. He drew the only face that had been exposed Li Yingling. But when Li Yingling sneaked into the mine, he had already used a skin mask to hide his identity. Late-stage golden core with the divine technique. One of the elders frowned slightly. Our nascent soul ancestor is currently in secluded meditation, and the Qingfeng Sect has no such divine techniques. Even if we find them, we might not actually win. Shang Wenhong glared at the elder who spoke, killing intent erupting from his body. But after a long silence, he finally spoke slowly. You're right, but what we must do absolutely cannot stop here. The Ray Foundation here isn't severely damaged. Repairing it won't be difficult. As for those bloodstones, we'll just hunt more. From now on, all 5 of us elders will guard this place, while the sect disciples rebuild the Great Ray. Even if they have divine techniques, we'll make sure they never leave alive. What happened at the mine afterward had nothing to do with the group that had already fled. After traveling day and night, I brought my disciples back to the ruined temple. Ning Qianqian heard the commotion and rushed out. Seeing the man on Li Yingling's back, she immediately knelt and kowtowed to me. Thank you, great immortal. Thank you, great immortal. With a light cough, Ning Qianqian slowly opened his eyes. When he saw his daughter, his mouth fell wide open. But before he could speak, I cut him off with a wave of my hand. I don't have time for a father-daughter emotional scene. I'm not expecting any repayment from you. Just, if you ever get caught by the Qingfeng Sect, don't go selling me out. As I spoke, I took out some food and silver. From here and you'll find civilization. With this food and water, it's enough to get you there. Ning Qianqian naturally understood my meaning. Now that the dust had settled, the Qingfeng Sect's retaliation she looked at the group before her and kowtowed 3 times. Then she helped her confused father up and turned to leave. Rest assured, benefactor, even if I die, Ning Qianqian will never utter a single word. Once the two had walked far away, I suddenly turned to my disciples. Pack up, we're moving. Regarding their master's command, the 2 of them seemed to have expected it. We only lived here because we offended the secretary of the Black Tortoise Kingdom and wanted to lay low for a bit. Now we have the Qingfeng Sect to worry about. The few of them didn't have much stuff. Soon they were walking out of the ruined temple with their packs. Master, where are we going this time? My gaze swept over my senior and junior disciples, looking at me with expectant eyes. I finally couldn't hold back a smile. I used to have to run away all by myself, but now the whole sect is running away together. Let's make tracks. A few days later, a middle-aged real estate agent opened the doors to a courtyard house. Young master, this is a fine property. Li Yingling listened and took a look around. It naturally couldn't compare to her family's estate, but it was leagues better than that ruined temple. At least it was clean and tidy, and we wouldn't have to patch up leaky doors. Seeing my eldest disciple's satisfied I decisively pulled out 22 silver. We'll rent it for half a year first. Just hand me the paperwork once you finish the formalities. The agent heard this and very tactfully took his leave. Master, what made you want to come to Yuzhou City? Li Yingling asked curiously. She had thought Master would take them deep into some other mountain. My eldest disciple's question was actually quite sharp. Coming to Yuzhou City first was a matter of necessity. Good question. I'll explain it all to you tonight. For now, see what we're missing. Go to the market and buy some things. We might be staying here for quite a while. You got it, Master. Junior brother, come on. Junior brother, hurry up. Let's hit the streets. As the sound of their footsteps faded, I first closed the main gate. Then I lightly flicked rays onto several hidden spots. Once everything was done, my figure suddenly vanished from the center of the courtyard. If you ask where the best place in Yuzhou City is, it's naturally the Jade Bamboo Pavilion. The girls there are elegant and refined. But even if you throw down 1,000 gold, if the lady says no, you won't see her. You can't even get a glimpse through the white silk. Right now, I was inside the private room of a certain young lady at the pavilion. The maid opposite me was brewing tea. While glaring at me huffily, I took a light sip. The tea in my mouth is a bit stingy with the brewing next time. Add more leaves. The maid nearly choked on her breath. She wanted nothing more than to smash the teapot over this shameless man's head. Did he have any idea how precious this tea was? Even a tiny bit. It was only saved because her lady was too frugal to drink it. Normally, just catching a whiff of its fragrance was like celebrating New Year's. She couldn't help but cold snort. If you don't know how to appreciate it, don't drink it. Xiaolan, don't be rude. A cold female voice drifted in from outside. Xiaolan shuddered instantly at the sound and quickly stood to the side, behaving herself toward the door, and saw a veiled woman walking in slowly. Even without seeing her full face, One could tell that the beauty standing there was surely divine. She was clutching a sheet of paper, staring straight at me as I sat in the chair. Seeing this, I gave a slight smile. Long time no see, Lady Yingling. It has been a long time. I thought you were dead. Or rather, in your own words, a scourge like you lives for 1,000 years. So you wouldn't die that easily. Standing respectfully nearby, couldn't help but burst out laughing. Xiaolin couldn't help but burst out laughing. As Yaokin's gaze drifted over, she immediately stifled waved her hand at the maid. You go out first. Xiaolin looked up at her lady. Her lady was always being led around by the nose by this guy. If she left, who knows if he'd trick her again. But seeing the lady's firm eyes, she could only sigh and exit the room. With Xiaolin gone, Yingling began tuning her strings as she spoke. What brings you to me this time? I let out a sigh. Why so distant, Lady Yingling? You make it sound like I only come when I need a favor. Distant from the door until now. Who's the one that keeps calling me Lady Yingling? Yingling still didn't look up, her tone only growing colder. When have you ever looked for me without asking for help? Those words made me pause. It seemed Yingling was right. Every time I sought her out, it was for a favor. And this time was no different. After a brief thought, I realized this wouldn't do. I had to be more tactful, lest I be barred from the door the next time I needed something. I looked up at Yingling. I wish to entrust my heart to the zither, but soulmates are few. If the string snaps, the jade bamboo is there to listen is all about class. Money doesn't always cut it, but literary talent and vibes have a high success rate. As long as you're handsome enough, she'll likely fall for it. Relying on my wit and humor, and borrowing classic poetry from my previous life, dropping a few verses, could easily charm these proud, refined ladies. At least that was the case with Yingling, although so far I hadn't even touched her hand. With this poem incorporating her name, I was quite confident that the woman before me would be deeply moved. But reality was quite different. What greeted me wasn't Yaokin's shy voice, but a violent wave of sound. A piercing sonic boom brushed past my ear, snapping me out of it. You rogue. Do you think seeing me a few times gives you the right to toy with me? How am I a rogue? I haven't even touched your hand. Isn't this a bit unfair to me? Hearing that, Yingling quickly pulled her hand back from the table. With a look of disdain. I sighed. I should have just been direct. Thinking this, I placed a blood-chi spirit stone on the table, immediately locked onto the stone. After a couple of glances, her divine sense quickly swept over me. To Yinglin's surprise, her divine sense couldn't see through me this time. You're stunned. I gave a slight smile. Yeah. Did I scare you? Yingling wasn't ignorant of my talent. If I were truly a genius, after drinking so much of her tea, I should have realized the tea was special long ago. This rogue drank it like well water without his talent clearly wasn't that great. He was only at the peak of foundation just about a year. Establishment. He was now at least a mid-stage golden core. Seeing this, Yingling looked down at the blood-chi spirit stone. An unpleasant thought surfaced in her mind. Did you turn to evil cultivation? I quickly explained the situation. At the Qingfeng Sect mine, with a bit of exaggeration, Yingling lightly gripped the stone, sensing the fierce, ominous blood-chi within. So you've come to me to deal with the Qingfeng Sect? I shook my head. Not exactly. I just want to know if there's a way to purify or evolve these spirit stones. Yingling looked at me suspiciously. It will take some time. I can't guarantee a solution. Come back and ask me in a few days. No need. I'll be staying in Yuzhou City once you have a result. Just send a letter to this address. Yingling looked down at the elegant cursive script. This was the first time she could know exactly where to find me. But just as I was about to turn and leave, Yaokin's shy voice suddenly called out. Wait, leave the poem you just said before you go. By the time I returned my senior and junior disciples hadn't returned from shopping. The most important matter had been settled. This was my main goal in coming to Yuzhou City. Based on my deductions, the entire jade must be linked to a major cultivation sect. When I first met Yingling, she was already at the golden core stage. Could be an ancestor in these backwaters. Yet she was just playing the zither at this pavilion. Such a setup most likely belongs to a sect from the central province. So I had quite a bit of confidence that Yingling could solve this. After all, the spirit stones in my spatial ring were all these bloodstones. If I tried to spend these as money, I'd definitely be taken out by righteous cultivators on the spot. I appeared to be very wealthy, but in reality, I couldn't even produce a single usable spirit stone. While I was lost in thought, my eldest disciple's shout rang out. She came through the gate with carrying a large pack on her back. Li Yingling followed behind, carrying a giant bundle 2 or 3 times his size. Seeing this, I was instantly confused. Has the cost of living in Yuzhou City dropped that much? With just that much silver, you bought all this? Li Yingling tilted her head up proudly, setting down her pack. She winked at her junior brother, signaling him to tell Master. about her glorious achievement. Senior sister didn't exactly buy it. Li Yingling had a look of sheer disbelief on his face. A new street vendor showed up, holding a ring toss game with random prizes. Senior sister spent all the money at that stall. I was stunned. Was this my disciple's insane luck? But when Li Yingling opened the giant bundle, the contents were a massive letdown. Besides 3 sets of bedding, the rest were useless rattles, swords made of copper coins, and even a set of wooden fish used by monks. I picked up the mallet for the wooden fish with a dark expression. Is this a consolation prize? Master, this wooden fish is special. Li Yingling chimed in and quickly introduced it. According to the vendor, this wooden fish was left by a high monk before he passed, who infused all of his accumulated merit into it. It's a truly extraordinary treasure. Hearing that immediately made my blood boil. How do you know that street vendor was telling the truth? However, Li Yingling's left me even more dazed. The two of us saw it with our own eyes. That high monk passed away on the spot. Yes, he was a Qi refinement monk practicing asceticism. After senior sister won that wooden fish, despite her attempts to stop him, he fused all his cultivated merit into that wooden fish right then. Finally, he entrusted senior sister. He insisted she was destined for greatness and would definitely shake the cultivation world in the future. After some tossing around, the 3 of them quickly gathered in my bedroom, preparing to hold a full sect meeting. I took out the blood chi from my spatial ring and placed them on the table. All the spirit stones in that have been stained like this by blood chi. What's wrong with this? Li Yingling picked up a stone and looked it over. Doesn't seem to be any problem. Li Yingling is a cultivation idiot. This stone just changed color. She can also feel that the spiritual energy decreased, but hearing this, the content hasn't decreased. I gave a vivid example. Suppose you're at the demon suppression division, and you take this thing out at the main gate out of there. Then those losers must be total pushovers. But I've already asked someone to help the next while, you two. Just focus on your cultivation. Once the stone issue is resolved, we'll go find a better place. Li Yingling nodded to show he understood. But Li Yingling had her own little idea. She pouted her little lips and looked at me with pleading eyes. Master, the Yuzhou Lantern Festival is coming up. I've never attended one in my whole life. I nodded and agreed to this. I understood my eldest disciple's situation. Her childhood wasn't exactly great. The meeting drew to a close. Having arranged their cultivation, I signaled them and turned to leave. As for what I'd be doing, naturally, I was going to slack off openly. A few days later, by a large river, in a chair, leisurely fishing. Occasionally, pure spiritual energy. This was the feedback from Li Yingling's cultivation. Total automation achieved. Cultivating, yet coming up empty-handed again. As the sun began to dip in the west, I planned to pack up and go home. I hadn't caught a single fish these past few days. Just as I was about to these disrespectful, dumb fish a little golden core master shock. The rod in my hand suddenly grew heavy. My eyes lit up. Finally caught a fish by actually fishing. However, as the rod leaped out of the water, a massive figure also flew out from the depths. Damn it, it's not a fish. It's a giant corpse. This is definitely Li Yingling's fault. That wooden fish is definitely I'll make her burn that piece of junk when I get back. The most unlucky part was the person I hooked. Wearing demon suppression division gear. My divine sense swept over the person I caught. The person I fished up had a level 7 Qi and surprisingly was still alive. Helpless, I used silver needles to seal his acupoints, then rushed him toward nearby Yuzhou City. There were naturally guards at the Yuzhou gate. So before I even reached the gate, 2 men came running over. One guard clearly had experience with this. He quickly shouted toward the city gate. Someone from the Demon Suppression Division is badly hurt. Send a fast horse to the division to call for help. Having said that, he bowed to me. Thanks for the help, brother. Please wait a moment, since you saved their man. The Demon Suppression Division After a while, will give a young-looking girl came running fast with a medicine around the Qi refinement. Level 6 or 7. The young medic's eyes quickly locked onto the youth. Did you apply these silver needles? If not for these needles, this guy probably wouldn't have lasted until now. She seized the moment to tap his acupoints, attempting to vent the energy inside him. But she soon felt something was very wrong. This energy actually carried endless blood chi. It began to entwine with the medic's spiritual energy broke through the skin. The familiar blood chi made my brow furrow instantly. Almost identical to the blood chi in the spirit stones. The young medic felt the blood chi began frantically gnaw at her spiritual body, while rapidly contaminating the surrounding flesh. Seeing she couldn't handle it, I immediately grabbed her arm, carefully controlling my spiritual energy output. The young medic gave me another look. I thought he was just good looking. Didn't expect his cultivation to be so impressive too. Must be at least foundation After a while, establishment. She shook her head. I'd better take him back to treat him slowly. If you're free later, go straight to this station if you're free later. Go to the Demon Suppression Division. My name is Anian. After handling this little episode, I returned to the rented house. Li Yingling glanced over as I returned. She sized me up. No fish today, master. I sighed and briefly recounted today's events. After hearing the story, Li Yingling doubled over, my disciples laughing. Teasing. I said with a calm expression, I think I was definitely jinxed by that wooden fish. Hurry up and burn it to appease your master's burning hatred. Meanwhile, inside the Demon Suppression looked grimly Division at the youth I'd fished up. This is trouble, real trouble. The trouble wasn't the youth lying unconscious on the bed. It was the person standing beside him now. A squad leader of the division man. How could this boy be this she-devil's younger brother? Are you saying his meridians are likely become ruined? A cripple? Not exactly a cripple. It's just that Anian suddenly hadn't read enough books. She couldn't think of any suitable words to sugarcoat the chance of this boy becoming a cripple. At least he's still alive. Anian could only offer this comfort. The she-devil of the division unconsciously brushed her hand against the short blade at her waist. Did you set these silver needles? No, but don't overthink it. Without these needles, this guy would have probably checked out nodded slightly, accepting Anian's explanation. Then she drew the short blade from her waist and gently flicked open a meridian inside the youth instantly. Searched toward the incoming spiritual energy. Zhao Wenqing's expression remained unchanged. After absorbing part of the blood, she gently sealed the wound again. She took one last look at her unconscious brother, then turned and walked quickly toward the archives. Her brother had been assigned to the second. Walked toward the archives. Her brother had been assigned to the second team. Zhao Wenqing hadn't even greeted the others in the division. Could someone be using this to take revenge on her? She quickly flipped through her brother's service records and soon found the file for this mission. Investigating the disappearances at one family village. Even the veteran member's status is unknown. This is clearly a man-made disaster. Seems I'll have to investigate this myself. Inside the bamboo jade pavilion, Yaoqin had many books laid out before her. She held up a dark red blood-chi spirit stone, reading the book carefully, while trying to reverse the blood key's erosion of the stone. But soon the stone suddenly flashed with light and fell to the ground. Watching this, Ailing softly advised Miss, take a break. You haven't rested in so long. That ledger's business isn't nearly that important. Yaoqin raised her slender and gently rubbed her forehead. Hand. I understand. You may leave now. As the maid walked out of the room, Yaoqin closed her eyes to rest for a moment. Then she picked up the spirit stone again. This was not something she could solve, simply or easily, even with many sect books to reference. As the stone hit the floor again, Xiaoling's voice came from outside just in time. Miss Zhao wishes to see you. Yaoqin looked up, only to see Zhao Wenqing standing at the door looking quite dejected. Much of her usual confidence had vanished from her eyes. I'm busy lately. What is it? Say it and leave. Zhao Wenqing took 2 steps inside, then cupped her hands in salute. I need you to do me a favor. Yaoqin immediately shook her head. What do these people take her for? Everyone comes to her when they have trouble. Things themselves. Zhao Wenqing acted as if she didn't see the head shake. She took out a talisman containing the blood chi from her brother's body. I need you to help me check this blood. What kind of path this blood chi follows. This blood chi attacks someone from the division. I won't refuse you any favors. Hearing the words blood chi, Yaoqin, who originally had zero interest, instinctively looked toward the talisman on the table. I understand. I'll send someone to notify you once there's a result. Having said that, she looked down at the blood-red talisman. The blood chi contained within is incredibly violent. It seems identical to the blood chi in the spirit stones I gave him. The Clear Breeze sect is actually quite far from How could they possibly take the risk of stretching their hands all the way here, unless they're here tracking that lecture? But he's living quite leisurely in This means he must be hiding something from me. Or perhaps he's simply turned into an evil cultivator. Gripped the talisman, and with a few flickers of movement, she arrived at my residence. But as the tightly shut door opened, what met her eyes was a pure-looking young girl. Li Yingling saw the visitor, and was momentarily stunned. You must have the wrong house. Yaoqin frowned slightly. Looking at the girl before her, does Chu Xingtian live here? Li Yingling looked at the pretty older sister, also feeling a bit dazed. Who is this person? Straight up calling out her master's name. Is she an old flame or an old enemy? More importantly, how should she answer this? That name sounds a bit familiar. Why are you looking for him? Li Yingling tried to ask in a roundabout way. What does that have to do with you? Does he live here or not? A friendly smile appeared on Li Yingling's face. I can't remember names very well. My brother has a great memory. He'll definitely know if Chu Xingtian lives here. Let me go ask him. Saying that, Li Yingling quickly shut the door, finding her junior brother. Ding Ling quickly shut the door. Her junior brother. There's a woman at the door looking for master. Don't know what it's about. Go outside and
tell
find
him a
Master
cold-looking,
very beautiful woman is looking for him. If she's here to pick a fight, come back and give me a secret signal. I'll just say Master doesn't live here. If she's Master's lover, tell him to get back here pronto. Li Yingling frowned slightly. Is senior sister overthinking things again? Seeing her serious expression, he still nodded. Master is likely at the brothel listening to music right now. Ever since Master fished up he decided to change his method of mental training. Li Yingling didn't understand. What kind of mindset listening to music about listening to women sing? With that thought, he hurried toward the brothel Master mentioned. Several scantily clad women were leaning against the brothel entrance and other instruments, softly singing rather suggestive lyrics. Just by looking at the entrance, one could tell this place was totally improper. Master is so confused. These kinds of women are all liars. Li Yingling's expression turned cold. He casually stuffed some silver into the brothel. His eyes scanned the room. Almost everyone was hugging girls and doing scandalous things. Soon his gaze locked onto the corner room. But to Li Yingling's surprise, Master wasn't getting like those common mortals. Instead, he was holding a woman about something. Qingfeng sipped his tea. The girl holding the peeper gazed at him with total admiration. He murmured, "You truly are a man of great talent and impressed." Whether it was poetry, music, astronomy, even the changing state of the world, he had unique insights and high standards. Cheap brothel girls, like the ones singing at the door. Low-standard brothel girls, like the ones singing at the door. And customers naturally don't need to learn how to sing properly. Just knowing an instrument is enough. But every profession has its hierarchy. She had been trained as a top courtesan since childhood, seriously studying everything from poetry to dance. Every word and gesture were carefully practiced. Her vision and ability far exceeded ordinary people. Usually she only saw men lusting after her beauty, with nothing in their heads, using vulgar language, greed written all over their faces. But this gentleman was different. Every word and action showed the grace of a scholar. And he was just so handsome. His eyes seemed to have stars twinkling in them. They say her job is to charm the guests. But now she felt like she was the one talking to this handsome man. Felt like a refreshing under this contrast. She felt the handsome man before was like a carefree immortal from the heavens. Not a mere mortal. Put down his tea. Seeing the girl's starry-eyed look, he knew his skills hadn't faded. To survive well in the cultivation world, smooth talking is essential. Cultivation emotional was lacking. Intelligence made up for it. Qingfeng's smile was like a spring breeze. You're too kind talking with you. I also feel your every word and gesture. Just as she was about to deepen the conversation, Qingfeng suddenly turned around, looking toward Li Yingling, who was walking over. Qingfeng stood up abruptly. This disciple of his was purely obsessed with cultivation. If nothing was wrong, he wouldn't have left the house at all. This was clearly an emergency. Li Yingling stepped forward, glanced at the brothel girl, and whispered to his master. Senior sister said a very cold-looking woman is at the door.